Well, the market closing about 0.25% in the red this afternoon. Miners, resources pulling the all-share down. And again, concerns over global restrictions to contain the latest COVID variant to have investors on the edge. Wayne McCurrie from FNB Wealth and Investments joins me now. Wayne, thanks indeed for your time. So, you know, while shares themselves might not be too concerned about the Omicron virus, the restrictions are still potentially a bit nerve-wracking for investors. Presumably that's what you're seeing on the market at the moment.
Yes, a little bit. I mean, certainly the new variant, from all the information I can gather, is not nearly as virulent as previous ones, because the number of truly sick people that have been admitted is incredibly low, and yet the infection rates are significantly high, approaching 20,000. So we hope that is the case, that it doesn't actually cause nearly as much severe illness and deaths. And then we'll see restrictions, particularly for the leisure sector, and then obviously for overseas business people and leisure people coming out here.
And listen, there's not too much company news on the day, and I suppose as we approach the holiday season, company news will just stagger down completely from next week. But Tonga Hewlett, this is an interesting one. I mean, July's civil unrest, when costing it 158 million rand in profits because you had fields that were set ablaze, stocks were looted. But I mean, I think their problems go beyond that, isn't it?
Yes, hugely so. I mean, Tonga is one of the oldest companies listed on our stock market. And in the housing boom, in the property boom, sort of 2002 through to 2008, they developed the whole Umhlanga Ridge. It was all cane fields, and they made a lot of money at the time. But then, of course, the property market collapsed, and they were sitting with all this undeveloped land. And unfortunately, they carried on putting money into it, and they carried on sort of essentially putting errors in their books. I mean, literally misleading investors. And this all came to the light eventually, as it always does. And the share price collapsed, and they're sitting with huge debt. But they are continuing with the turnaround strategy there. I mean, even though they showed a loss this year, they have significantly reduced their debt. They're doing a rights issue. So they seem to be on the path to recovery. But it's a very difficult thing that a very difficult situation that current management find themselves in. You know, no company actually wants to be in this type of position.
I just want to return back, as I'll let you go, Wayne, on you know, some of the stocks we're seeing. I mean, this Omicron virus variant, rather, I think largely some of these shares have eased their fears on, as you say, the severity of the virus. But I'm wondering, what happens to those holding those leisure stocks? I mean, you've got City Lodge, you've got Sun International. Some of them just held on to it thinking that you would see that bounce back. But then again, these restrictions are just so uncertain. We haven't really seen any significant bounce back in these stocks. I suppose they're sort of in isolation in terms of just not improving. Is that your take?
Look, I think we've got to make the conclusion that some form of normality will eventually return, because, you know, no illness, no sickness is going to dominate human behavior and human characteristics and how we actually live and function as people. It won't do it forever. And we will either control this virus properly or learn to live with it and learn to live with the necessary restrictions. But life will return to some normality at some stage, as I said. And the leisure stocks will start filling up the hotels, and the overseas people will start coming here. And there's every indication that sometime next year, hopefully, we will truly be over all of this, and those shares can now actually start climbing. Because if you believe it, that's right. You know, the shares offer reasonable value at these levels.
No, indeed. So Wayne McCurrie from FNB Wealth and Investments, thanks very much indeed for that insight. All right, so we